I don't want anything coming out of my Yahoo. And she was like, my Yahoo is not going to change. What do you think that was?
The brick is her baby's head sitting in her pelvis.
Do you think people ever do breastfeed themselves?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Hello, Anja Angels. So we are super excited to be able to do this celebrity reaction today. And we are here with Amelia, who is the head of community at Anja Health. And I met her because I was actually reaching out to different doulas who could potentially partner with us and be able to spread the word about Anja Health and the importance of saving your umbilical cord and placenta at birth, which is my personal mission in life and the mission of the company. So I met Amelia by just trying to meet doulas, and then she was really interested in being a part of our mission. So I love working with Amelia, and she's absolutely fantastic, has so much birth experience, not only from her own birth, giving birth to her daughter, but through being a doula and observing literally hundreds of births. So yeah, I'm super excited, and thanks for watching.
And not going to be to everyone's taste. So when we announced it, in my mind I was like, oh, like it's just this beautiful, like that's just her, like she's Bambi, and like that's just this beautiful name, like, and it's amazing. And then like 2 seconds after posting it, I was like, oh my god, like I don't know why I'm even talking about this in this video, because this is meant to be like a really positive, happy video. But yeah, just there's so many things from the last 2 weeks that like we have to talk about and just catch up on. But this is going to be my birth story. I have actually written it all down in this book, and it's taken up 6 pages. I've not written that much since I was in secondary school doing my GCSEs. I did mention the other day on my Instagram.
Molly-Mae is?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay. Basically, wait, if you search birth, this is literally what the top vlog from a non-provider, because she won Love Island, and then her husband, they're not married, but like her Love Island, like they basically stayed together. Now it's been like 4 years or something. And what's crazy is she's actually my age, like right now. And
damn girl.
And then yeah. And she talks about in one of her other vlogs how I used to love Love Island. So like, I like love Molly-Mae. So I was watching this anyway. But the guy that she like paired up with on Love Island is this like fighter, Tommy Fury. And he's actually going to fight Jake Paul soon. So he's becoming more and more relevant in like American pop culture.
Perfect time to react to her video.
Yeah. Okay.
Instagram story, a little bit about my delivery of Bambi and how my birth went and the type of birth that I had. I called it a natural delivery, and a lot of people were in my DM saying you should have called it a vaginal delivery because all.
So I want to get your thoughts on that first. Like, if people say a natural delivery, do you feel some type of way about it not being called that?
I think it's inherently saying, I get where people are coming from, but I also think it can kind of like delve into nitpicking. Like, yeah, every birth is birth. And so like, regardless of if you had a cesarean or a vaginal birth, you're a mom or a parent, right? So
yeah,
I think that and you also gave birth. And I think it can feel like an us versus them situation with parents of like, oh, they had a cesarean and I had like a natural birth, so I'm superior. But like, yeah, there's no awards for having a vaginal birth. It can be an easier recovery, but like, you're not more of a parent or more of a mom for one or the other. So I get where I get where that conversation comes from, but I don't think, I mean, I guess like somebody who had a cesarean might feel differently, but I feel like, I get what the premise is like, you gave birth how your body is created to give birth or made to give birth is vaginally, but yeah, anyways.
Cool.
Births are natural. And when I read that, like I actually felt kind of disappointed in myself and like a bit upset that I'd not really thought about that. Of course, all births, cesarean, vaginal, like they're literally all natural, like they're all incredible, and however you've given birth to your child or however you plan to give birth to your child or whoever it turns out is natural and amazing and incredible. But I was able to vaginally give birth to her. Now guys, like I actually like, if you've been following my pregnancy journey, then you will know that was, for me, like, oh my god, like I pushed her out of my vagina, like, what? Don't get me wrong, that down there will never be the same again. Okay, it might be. I don't know. We're still.
Reminds me of, do you know this Love is Blind, the show on
Yes.
Netflix? There's this girl, Alexis Lemieux, and they recorded this conversation of her talking to her stepmom about how she only wants to ever have C-sections because she was like, I don't want anything coming out of my Yahoo. And she was like, my Yahoo is not going to change.
Oh my gosh. Well, I hate to break it to you, but as you age, your Yahoo is going to change regardless.
Oh, really? So and I feel like I've seen TikToks where people talk about like, it kind of like snaps back mostly. Do you feel like that's true?
Yeah, and it's different. Everything is different, right? Your entire body is different. Like before you have your baby or before you even get pregnant all the way to after, like everything's different. But the vagina is a muscle. It's surrounded by muscles. Your entire pelvic floor is kind of suspended by muscles. And as age increases, tone decreases. So even your pelvic floor, I mean, this is why it's so important to have a healthy pelvic floor tone, like after birth, and for people to follow up after birth for pelvic floor therapy, is because like, if you don't deal with that situation and like, strengthen those muscles, then like it can degrade them faster as you age. But everybody's like vaginal muscle tone is going to change as they age regardless. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point of view. I think it doesn't necessarily like match reality, but I see where people are coming from when I think that.
How do you normally recommend people maintain their vaginal state if that's what they're concerned about? It's just pelvic floor therapy, right?
Pelvic floor therapy. Yeah. There's some tools like some people use like yoni strengthening eggs and things like that, but there's a lot of things on the market that aren't necessarily evidence-based. But so like what is evidence-based is seeing a pelvic floor therapist. And I've seen pelvic floor therapists. I recommend it. I think that they're amazing people who can just like generally help you, even if you haven't given birth or if you have, had a cesarean. Even after having a cesarean, I think pelvic floor therapy can be helpful because like the weight of your pregnancy shifts everything anyways, even without like actually vaginally birthing. So
Okay, interesting. Cool.
We're still obviously working that out. So on the 18th, we went down to London for a kind of like a routine checkup.
Another thing, they gave birth in the UK. So I think it's kind of interesting that she's going viral in the US because they're like, I get comments on my TikToks that's like, I can tell you're in the US because you always say OB instead of midwife, but like in the UK, midwifery is more of a standard or a midwife. So that's something else that's interesting is she talks about like the midwifery standard. And I feel like it starts to normalize in American culture.
Totally. Language matters.
37.5 weeks at this point. When we went for this appointment, I had an internal check because I had told the lady delivering our baby that I'd been experiencing quite a lot of pain down there. And it almost felt like for that last week, I had like a brick inside my vagina and it was very, very, very heavy down there, very achy. I was struggling to walk actually, and every time I walked it just kind of felt like I was about to give birth to a brick. And I just kind of told her about this and she was like, right, let's just do a quick intern.
What do you think that was?
The brick is her baby's head sitting in her pelvis. So that's adorable. But yes, that brick is your baby.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
To check what your cervix is saying. She was like, I'm sure your cervix is going to be long, hard and closed. Obviously, Tommy and I were very shocked. We were very unprepared. We'd actually just found this out the day before I'd filmed my hospital bag video. And that's why in that video I was like, guys, I've got a lot going on because I just found out that I was going to be giving birth in a couple of days. I was going to be induced. The reason we decided to be induced and not let the labour come on naturally is because obviously, like I said, we'd chosen to give birth in London. And also, as you guys know, I can't really avoid talking about it. Tommy has an absolutely gigantic fight in just a couple of weeks. And we, through this period of life, really just needed to have some sort of understanding of like when things were going to be happening. Needed to have a rough understanding of.
What are your thoughts on that? And just the cervix as well.
So what she's talking about with the favorable cervix is basically signs that labor is impending. I think somebody saying like you're not going to make it to your due date because you're 1 centimeter dilated. I don't know that I would agree with that statement. I mean, I'm not the one who like did the vaginal exam, but some people can sit at 1 centimeter for 5 weeks. Like It just kind of depends. So I think it can get people's like hopes up and then they get disappointed if they get there. So I don't know if I would use that language, but it's pretty common. I mean, favorable is like a fairly common term for like when the cervix is like shortening. So the cervix is, you can imagine it kind of like a long donut, like tall donut.
Yeah.
And this is of course not the size that it is. My hands are not the size of the cervix, but effacement is where the cervix spins this way. And then dilation is when it opens this way. So dilation is, they measure it. It's very abstract in how they measure it. When they do an exam, they put the number of fingers. So basically 1 centimeter dilated is like 1 finger fits into the cervix. And then they can feel that the cervix is like thinner, right? So in order for your cervix to be fully dilated, what you want it to be is fully effaced, which is where there's no thickness to it. It's like paper thin, and then it's fully dilated to essentially where you can't feel any cervix because the baby's head has replaced that space.
Wow.
So what she was feeling, the midwife was feeling, is that her cervix was soft, which throughout your entire pregnancy, it stays hard. It's kind of like keeps your baby in. And so as your prostaglandins and everything, as you get closer to labor and closer to contractions and the whole process, the cervix does get softer and you start to like feel that. So I think when I went into labor, before I went into labor with Esme, I was 2 centimeters dilated, I think, for 3 weeks. And it was my first baby.
Wow.
Monday morning came around and 7 a.m. we went in to hospital. Sorry that I'm like literally reading this from a book, but my brain is just so not functioning at the minute. This is kind of how I need to do it. So I've written down here, 7:30 a.m. I had a gel inserted into my vagina. It's going to be real TMI in the story. I'm not going to hold back on anything, and I'm ready for all of the embarrassing headlines, guys. You know, when I spoke about in my last video, breastfeeding from myself, you should see, like, even my family were like, Molly, like, come on now, what are you doing? There was literally a Daily Mail article, and the screenshot was me, like, lifting my boob into my mouth, and the headline was, Molly-Mae tried to breastfeed herself. And I was like, do you know what? Like, I can't win. I want to tell you guys everything and be open and be myself on my channel, but then I get smacked with stuff like that, and I'm like, do you know what? Like, I would take all of the embarrassing headlines just to be completely 100 with you guys and keep it real. So the gel that I had inserted, I believe is it's meant to sort of like give signals to your body and sort of make it.
So what was that gel?
It's probably a cervical ripener. It's synthetic prostaglandins, which is a hormone induction. It may have been cervidil or something like that.
Help your cervix further dilate?
Yeah, so basically what they're trying to do is get the cervix softer so that you can potentially insert, I don't know exactly how she's induced, we'll find out, but oftentimes they want it to be soft, and then they insert a Foley bulb, which is a kind of manually dilates you. They pump air into it and it like puts pressure. It's like a balloon. You could totally Google it and add kind of a thing of what that is.
Yeah.
But they basically want you to be dilated to a certain point before they start synthetic oxytocin, which is called Pitocin.
Right.
So that your body's favorable enough to actually like start producing contractions.
I see.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you think people ever do breastfeed themselves?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I saw that like a TikTok a few days ago about, like how people were talking. Yeah. Basically colostrum has become this whole like wellness thing, and people like think that it's like full of benefits and stuff like that. So they like are really trying to like excrete it when they can.
Okay. Sure, whatever. I mean, colostrum is like, they call it liquid gold, right? It's created for babies. I don't know how much health benefits it has for adults. I don't think there's really any like research on the benefits for adults. But yeah, I mean, if someone's dealing with a clogged duct in early breastfeeding, like finding a way to get suction that has like enough power to get that clogged duct out. I mean, if your partner's down, like it's much easier than trying to like bend over like honestly, like when you're early breastfeeding, a lot of people's like boobs are big enough that they can reach it and do it themselves, and if they feel more comfortable, you should totally do that. There's a lot of different ways, but like I mean, a lot of times like partners can do it as well, and I think there should be I think people should be able to talk about these things. Like it's kind of sad that you can say like, hey, this is what I'm going through, and then you kind of get like blasted in the tabloids.
Yeah.
That kind of sucks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Understand that you want it to go into labor. It's meant to sort of like soften your cervix, and I was told that that gel was going to take 6 hours to be effective. So I was hooked up to monitors, the gel was inserted, Tommy and I were in the hospital, like it was all very chilled, and I was like, okay, 6 hours, I'm just gonna be chilling. I'd probably say within, no word of a lie, 10 minutes after that gel was inserted, the pain, guys, it's no joke. It's no joke. 6 hours, I was told. After 10 minutes, I was like, ah! Like, I was gagging in pain. Oh my God, the amount of pain. It was untrue. I'll be completely honest, it was untrue. And do you know what I know the best part about it is? That wasn't even contractions. The pain I was experiencing was not contractions, and the way I was crying, screaming, nearly throwing up, the nurses were looking at me as if to be like, God, this is going to be a long day. This is going to be a long day. I'm not going to sit here and say.
Wait, what is that pain from?
I don't know. Maybe a reaction to the cervidil?
Oh,
I don't know. Maybe she'll...
Why didn't they give it sooner, do you think?
They typically won't give an epidural before like 4 centimeters.
Oh, okay.
Because it basically like it inhibits labor, and you're pretty much like walking into a cesarean at that point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, but most people who get an epidural, they can still have a vaginal birth, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Most of the time. I mean, epidurals can, people can have reactions to epidurals, right? So that it can lower or increase can lower your blood pressure. It can kind of give you a fever. You can get a fever. And so that can be kind of, epidural fever is a whole thing. It can lower the baby's heart rate. There's a lot of different like complications that can happen from epidural, the epidural medication. And so it does increase your risk of having a cesarean just because there's the perfect kind of mix of all those things. They're going to have to get the baby out.
Yeah.
But in most cases, like it's hospital policy to basically define like, okay, you can't get an epidural before you're in active labor, because they don't want people to, they don't want to have unnecessary cesareans, and they don't want to increase your risk of complications, because the longer you have an epidural, kind of like the higher risk you are. And so I'm not sure what like their birth center or L&D had as a policy, but I'm assuming that's probably why they wouldn't allow it. And if she wasn't even in labor yet, right? Like if this was just discomfort from the prostaglandins, it's a whole different.
That's what it was from.
Yeah, she's describing it very similar to a reaction to prostaglandins. I don't know if maybe the doctor told her or didn't. Kind of like, I don't know what they told her. But yeah, I've seen that like twice, or heard of it, of somebody having like a distinct reaction to an induction method, where they're just like in constant pain and suffering.
Is that common for induction?
It's not super common. I've seen it more with Pitocin, where people just like, they just slow the Pitocin down at that point and just wean you off it. But when it's a gel, like it's basically absorbed into the vaginal walls. Yeah.
So around midday, I was given my epidural. The epidural being administered, like the pain of that, I would say was literally a 1 out of 10. Like they give you they give you an injection first. I don't know if it's like a local anesthetic in your back, just like a little injection, so that the actual putting the epidural in, like the tube in your spine or whatever it is, you don't really feel it. So the doctor, who was amazing, he gave me my little injection for pain relief, and then he put the epidural in. You just have to sit up really, really straight. In fact, I'll pop a picture.
Is that usually the case?
It depends on how the epidural is placed and how much they dose for the original kind of dose. I'm assuming they started her on a low dose. Yeah, so what she was talking about, like before they place your epidural, they give you a shot of lidocaine, which numbs the like spot where they put the catheter, the epidural catheter, because it's kind of a long like tube in your back. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wait, I'm gonna sneeze. Okay, maybe it's passing.
After all that, and my epidural was in and working, my doctor came in and she broke my waters. Tommy watched that whole process. Like he literally watched everything. He also watched.
How does that part work?
So they use like a crochet hook. So that looks like a crochet hook, and they just go in and they snag the edge of the amniotic sac, because it's kind of like once you're dilated to where you can like put a finger, and she's not really saying like if they're checking her to see if she's progressing, which I'm assuming that she's progressing to like 2 centimeters or something at this point.
Well, hello.
Hello there. I just said, that's quite good timing actually, because I literally just said that you watched the whole thing.
I did. Seen everything.
What do you think?
Seen everything. It was like a science class, but in real life. It was the best thing I've ever seen in my life.
Was it?
Yeah, because it's like...
It was magical, wasn't it?
It's weird because before you have a child and someone tells you that you're going to see this and you're going to see that and you're going to see this cut and that cut, you feel like spewing your guts up. But when you see it, it's the most beautifulest thing. It's so pure. You know, holidays, whatever, it just doesn't compare to being a father and having your own family.
Yeah.
It's the best feeling in the world.
It is.
I love that little girl.
Yeah. No, they have great cuddles. They have great cuddles. I think because on me, 24/7, she smells milk and she associates me with feeding. So she doesn't really settle that well with me, because whenever she's with me, she's like...
Is that true? Is that a thing? Like they associate the mother with milk?
Oh yeah, they can smell it.
Oh, okay.
If you're breastfeeding. I think if people, it probably depends on how like your parenting style is. Like if you want to be able to just like hold your baby and not feed them and like keep them on a schedule, it's probably harder. I just pacify breastfed. I'm like, whatever. You can breastfeed if you want to, like I don't really care. And eventually she just like would fall asleep. Great.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
We call her a little truffle pig. She's just like snuffling around for milk. Like all she wants to do is feed. But when she's with you, she's like, and like she just falls asleep on his chest and can just be lying there for like 4 hours, just not moving.
The best thing.
She is the best thing, isn't she?
You went up 100 gazillion% in my book. Like the respect that I had a lot of respect for women anyway, because what they go through periods and stuff like that. But then birth is a completely different level. So after seeing that and experiencing what she went through, you know, it's just, honestly, men are pretty much useless, to be honest. You know, women are, honestly, they deserve a lot of credit because the stuff they have to go through, you got to be a very, very strong woman to go through it, and credit to anybody who has gone through it. You got women power. Sorry, never again.
Don't ever do that again.
Yeah, no.
Because I'm...
Okay.
So what do you recommend as a breast pump? And also what do you recommend for dads to like feel useful?
I mean, you can do all the diaper changes and meal prep and like do the dishes and laundry. Like,
yeah,
that's all things that like, if it doesn't happen, it's going to fall on your partner. Right. So, if you don't want to do it yourself, you can always hire someone to do it. Or like hire a postpartum doula if you want to, but, yeah, I think making sure that your partner gets a chance to get a shower every day and make sure that all their supplies are stocked, you know, if they need more disposable underwear, pads, like make sure those things are like happening, refill their snacks by their breastfeeding station, make sure their water bottle is completely full always with whatever temperature water. If they like ice water, better get some ice. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that can be done. I think generally in our society, we kind of, those routines aren't built into people's domestic kind of like pursuits in the first place. And so it can feel like a large change to do that. But if you just like build it in during pregnancy, that's a great way to start. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Cool.
It's a great way to start.
And then what breast pump would you recommend?
So I think everybody's breast pump situation is like there's preferences. Before the best advice that my midwife gave me after birth was not to pump in the first 14 days post birth.
Okay, yeah, she said about 2 weeks when she filmed this.
Yeah, and then a lot of people feel like they have to pump to make their milk come in, but it can cause actually exacerbate clogged ducts. So my midwife said, like, just use a haka. If you're like leaking a lot, then you can collect it, but like, don't do any active pumping. Like just put the baby on to breastfeed for the first 2 weeks. Yeah. And then after that, if you want to pump, you can pump. So I never got into like any crazy pumping routine. Like I would do it on occasion. Like I kept some in my freezer and stuff, but I mostly was like working at home. So I didn't have anywhere. And then COVID of course happened. And so we weren't going anywhere anyway. So there wasn't any like crazy reason to pump. But the biggest thing with like finding the right pump is making sure that you have the right size flange that's like actually goes over the breast, because if that's not correct, then you're going to feel it's not going to work right. So I really liked the LV pump, which was like a hands-free pump. Once I kind of got the hang of it, then I would just like put it in my bra, and then I would just like do whatever else I was doing and then take it out after a while. Like it just wasn't that serious to me.
Yeah.
But usually like a lot of people love the Spectre pumps. Like everyone has like their like favorite, and your insurance will usually pay for one. But you can also, some places have like pump rentals where you can like go in and try several different kinds before you pick, and also get measured to make sure that your flange is the right size. So like a lactation consultant should be able to help you measure. And sometimes they can do that like in the hospital too.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Right, I will have an hour and then I'll go and get your breast pump. Okay?
Okay. Right. I love you.
Love you.
Tune in 26th of Feb.
Be there, be square.
For a demolition job.
Exactly.
I completely have forgotten where I've gotten up to. But from what I think I said my hormone drip was started, my wards were broken, and we were sort of getting into the flow of things now. Labour was sort of taking place, but I could feel the sensations of my contractions. So I could feel my whole body and my whole stomach like going super, super, super tight. Like my whole body could feel it, but there was no pain, and I could feel that happening. So I could still feel like my whole labour. I could still feel what was going on. I still was completely aware as to what was going on with my body. But
is that normal? Like you feel it, but there's no, okay. Because my mom said she gave birth to me. She was literally always like, your birth was so easy after I got that epidural.
Yeah, because it takes away the pain, but it doesn't take away the pressure. Or it shouldn't take away the pressure. So you should be able to still feel like the contractions and feel like your stomach being really tight.
Yeah.
Right. But like so you could feel the same like urge to like push and all. That's an epidural that's working properly. Cool. If you don't feel anything, that's actually really problematic. Yeah.
But I was in no pain, which was just absolutely magical. So it got to about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. This is where things happened very, very quickly. And I'm going to try and explain this as simply and as easy to understand as possible. Basically, since the minute I was hooked up to the monitors in the morning, the doctors and nurses weren't happy with Bambi's movement and her heart rate. They were just not really happy with how she was doing in my stomach. Now, the craziest part about all of this is that the whole day I kept saying to them, she's a really quiet baby in the days. Like I've told you guys so many times, like I never really felt Bambi move in the day, but I kind of always put that down to the fact that I had an anterior placenta. But I kept saying to the doctors every time they were saying like, you know, we're not too happy with her movement, we're not too happy with her heart rate. They just weren't quite 100% at all with how she was doing inside my stomach from the second I got hooked up in the morning at 7 before we'd even started anything. But I did keep saying to them, I was like, I don't know, you know, this might just be her. Like she's a very quiet baby in the day. Like I never tend to feel her. She's very chilled. She doesn't really move a lot.
What do you think is happening?
I don't know. Like their monitors just maybe, I mean, it depends on like what the baby's normal activity was to some extent. Like if the baby's heart rate was typically like 140, 150 beats per minute, and then it was 112, that would be cause for concern, right? Especially if it never ever picked up. But yeah, I'm interested to hear like what happens. Yeah.
Not but obviously they're doctors and they're not going to be like, okay, well if you said that then we'll totally believe you, like we'll just totally just think that's just what it is. Because I'd only dilated to 3 centimeters, the doctor basically said that with Bambi's strange movements and heart,
you said they normally don't give an epidural until they hit 4, so they gave it prematurely.
They gave it to her pretty early then. That's interesting. Maybe they have a 2 centimeter policy at this hospital. I think I would say that like every birthplace has their own policies, but then also the providers can kind of override things sometimes too.
Right. She was like, I'm really not sure I want to try and push your body too much further. She was like, I don't know if your body's coping with it that well. I don't know if the baby girl is coping with it that well. She was like, I'm just not too sure this is quite going to plan. So at 4 o'clock, the word cesarean, C-section did get mentioned, and she was like, it's a possibility that you might have to go in for a C-section if baby girl doesn't sort of like perk up or doesn't sort of start responding how we want her to, if you don't start dilating more. Like we need to sort of see some sort of movement, some sort of signs. So then from that point on,
like what you were saying about the main problem with birth and intervention is that it's moving too slowly.
Yeah, you're trying to force something to happen that your body hasn't decided it's ready to do. Right?
Yeah.
It's trying to like push the envelope, and we don't trust our bodies to go into labor when they are. I mean, I know that they had extenuating circumstances, like, right, she wanted her partner to be there and whatnot, but yeah, it's kind of interesting, like how this is just a continuing narrative. Like it reminds me of Heidi talking yesterday about like the clients who go into spontaneous labor and don't have any interventions, whether it's epidural or, you know, those sorts of interventions. There's a 0% chance that they've had cesarean. I have seen that actually though on mine. Like I've had clients who are completely like everything was great. There were no interventions, so they needed a cesarean quickly.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think that that's like the end all be all.
Yeah.
It's happened twice where everything's been going great and then things change very rapidly due to like cord slipping between the baby's head or whatever, who knows what, you know. So it's not like a perfect it's not a perfect equation, right? Like sometimes our bodies do things we don't want them to do. But with that being said, like this is a classic like cascade of interventions.
Vulnerable video I will ever have of me, and to women that put that online and open themselves up, like that is incredible. And you have like, I think it's so amazing. Like I have a whole new respect for women that do birth vlogs now and like show that and show their births online. Like that is amazing. And like the fact that you have the confidence to do that. Like I can barely watch my video back myself. I think I've watched it back once with no volume. I bawled my eyes out watching it, and I feel like I don't know, I just feel like I will definitely never ever be able to show that. I don't even know if I'll ever be able to show it to anyone. My sister is begging and begging and begging to watch it, and I'm just like, oh god, I don't know. I just feel like I can't. So yeah, anyway,
did you have video like that?
Yeah, I do. And I don't feel the same way, like the same amount of like vulnerability, I guess. Like Esme's seen her birth video. But I would never show it to my mom, I guess, or like my sisters. I would show it to one of my sisters-in-law, but not the other. Like one of my brother's fiancés, I would show it to her. Like, but it's just kind of I get what she's saying. Like it's so like raw and vulnerable, and you're kind of in this like space, and it's like also very sacred too.
Yeah.
And, like birth in itself, like there's so much of it that is just like it pulls out a part of you that you just don't even realize exists until that moment. And so like nobody should ever, like I definitely applaud people who want to share or feel like open to sharing theirs, but I totally get not wanting to at the same time. Yeah.
I put my legs up in the stirrups, and Bambi was actually a ventouse baby. So a ventouse, I don't know like exactly how to describe it, but it's kind of like a suction cup that goes on the baby's head. And now I'm talking about it, I say I had I said online that I had like a natural delivery. There was nothing like particularly natural about my birth at all. Like I had an epidural, I had loads of pain medication, I had a ventouse, which means essentially when I'm pushing Bambi out, my doctor was also pulling Bambi out. So like a suction cup goes on her head, and she was sort of kind of, if I can see from the video now, she was sort of kind of like gently wiggling her out and sort of pulling her very gently.
I mean, it comes with risks.
Yeah.
For sure. Like,
why do you think they chose to do that? Just to make it easier?
I'm assuming that she wasn't descending. Like, I don't know how long her pushing phase was, but maybe the baby wasn't descending as fast as they wanted. Okay. It sounds similar to like a vacuum delivery. Vacuum deliveries are very, I mean, her talking about this makes me realize like why she doesn't want to share. It's very graphic. It's very intense. It's also scary when they're pulling on your baby like that.
Yeah.
I've witnessed a forceps delivery a handful of times, and vacuum deliveries twice, I think, 2 or 3 times. All the times the baby ended up in the NICU.
Oh, okay.
with complications. So there's usually something going on where they're probably concerned. It sounds like they're concerned about the baby's heart rate. So her heart rate may have been low the entire time. And so they were just like not wanting to delay getting her out just for safety.
Okay.
Very gently as I was pushing through my contractions. But the pushing, oh my God, like I loved it. And obviously I loved it because of my epidural. I'll be completely honest. Like, this is just me being completely honest. I enjoyed the pushing. But
is it like a good, like
pushing is, it's like, it's almost over, right? Like, this is the last step between you and your baby. And it's the part of labor that you're an active participant in instead of a passive participant.
Okay.
So you get to do the work at that point. Like, your body's doing the work the rest of the time, but this is like very intentional. Like you're making like effort.
Yeah.
Because I had an epidural, I don't think I'd have enjoyed the pushing. If I hadn't had an epidural, I don't think I would have probably enjoyed the whole labour if I hadn't had my epidural. And that's just me being completely honest. My epidural made me personally completely enjoy my labour. I would do it again in a heartbeat. Because I could still feel everything. I had all the sensations, but I was not in any pain. So every time I had a contraction, I could kind of feel it myself still. They did tell me when to push, but obviously when you have an epidural, like you don't feel it the same way that you would if you hadn't. But I could still kind of have the sensations of when it was time to push. So I'd push really hard, which again, I could still feel Bambi's head coming out of my vagina. Like, I could literally feel her head coming out of me. I know I keep going on about it loads, but I have to give credit to it because it doesn't sound normal otherwise. Because of my epidural, I could feel Bambi's head coming out of my vagina completely. I had the sensation that her head was sliding out of me, but I wasn't in pain. And I have to just say that because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. Like, why was your birth, like, why were you so calm? Like, why are you enjoying it so much? And that's the reason why. But yeah, I was pushing. She was literally like coming out of me. I could feel it. It was incredible. And like, to be honest with you, I'm sure I'm gonna get loads of questions of like, what did it feel like? Like, for me, it did actually feel like I was doing a poo. And by the way, did I poo in birth? Yes, I did, I think. The doctors were like, oh, like, no, you haven't, like, don't worry about it. But I think I did. I think I'm pretty sure. I'm 99.9% sure I could smell it.
Do providers lie about that?
Oh yeah. I mean, they just have like Chuck's pads, like the puppy pads, right? And so they just like grab it and throw it in the garbage, like as soon as it happens. Like, there's no time that it's just sitting there. I mean, most people do poop and pushing because it's the exact same muscle group. Like, if there's anything in your bowels, like, if there's anything, it's gonna come out. So it's fine.
Because I know you're gonna be like, did you poo in birth? Yeah, that's one thing as well. When I was pushing, I was quite nervous about, because I was like, I know, guys, I was saying to the doctors, like, I know if I push the way I'm gonna push this baby out, I am gonna poo. And they were like, don't worry about it. They're like, we see it every day. They were like, we see it 24/7. Like, 90% of women poo when they give birth. And I was like, do you know what, like, I know, but at the same time, like, this is a very vulnerable position for me right now. Like, my legs are in stirrups, there's medical professionals all around me, my boyfriend is stood here, like, I don't want to poo myself. Like, and you guys know me, I have zero dignity. And even in that moment, I still cared. I don't know why. Stupid, like, really stupid. But yeah,
I've been getting paid $1,000 a month, if not more, just from this app on my phone.
What do you think about her being in stirrups? Or is that like mandatory if you're in an epidural because you're like so numb?
It's not mandatory. If you get an epidural, you could do side lying. You can't really, you have limited mobility, right? Like, they don't want you to fall over. So it's not like you can, like, I've still seen moms with an epidurals like do like hands and knees sorts of positions. In stirrups is literally the worst. It's the worst position for your pelvic floor and for your whole pelvis, but it gives like doctors great access. But a lot of people don't have any information, so I hate to like diss on people who like use stirrups, because I think like they're just doing what feels right in the moment.
Right.
But
so if you have an epidural, what is the best position to give birth in?
I would say laying on your side.
Okay.
And like having somebody maybe support you, so you're kind of like in a little bit of a squat, but laying on your side would be like one of like my favorites to help people. And you can actually move back and forth if you need to get movement and stuff. And
then What position did you give birth in?
Kind of like a little bit kind of on my back, but like on one side of my pelvis.
Oh, okay.
So kind of like leaned towards one, but kind of like leaned over two, kind of like in a squatty potty position, but like kind of like lounging. And I always thought it was going to be like hands and knees, but I couldn't. I was like, no. And I was like, I'm just going to do what my body wants to do.
Yeah. Wait, why couldn't you do it? It was
I don't know. I just couldn't. I was just like, I just was like super uncomfortable. So I just laid on my side.
Okay.
And it's like in the moment, I don't even think I thought about it. Like I was just kind of like just finding the most comfortable spot.
Yeah.
And my midwife was great. And I mean, I barely pushed. Like I think I pushed like 10 times before she was born.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't like it was a super prolonged process.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like I labored until I couldn't stop pushing. Like my body was just like pushing for me. And then I just kind of like went with it. So it was a super fast process.
I still can't believe you did unmedicated. I think that's crazy.
I was determined.
Yeah.
Pushing as hard as I could. And I think altogether I did about eight pushes, like 8 big pushes, 8 huge pushes all together. And yeah, she was out, and they just pulled her up to me, and they had actually said to me, because of her heart rate and movement, they were like, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to put you on her on your chest straight away. We are going to have to take her off and check her over, because we're not quite happy with how she's doing. But she came out screaming, crying, and they gave her to me straight away, and they like popped her on my chest, and I was just looking at her, and I was like, I was in complete and utter shock. That's the only way I can describe it. I was in literal, just complete and utter shock. Tommy was sobbing his heart out. Like, I've never seen that boy. I don't think I've probably seen him cry a couple of times, but he was like, like the snot streaming from his nose, and we were just like hugging, and she was there, and honestly, it was like the most magical experience of my entire life. Like, I will never ever get over it, and I am just so lucky that I was given the opportunity by my doctor to try for a vaginal birth. Like, she could have very easily have just said, you know what, like, baby's not doing well, let's get you down for the C-section. Like, but she gave me the chance. She gave me and my body the chance to do it the way I wanted to do it. So yeah, then Bambi was born. So her weight, I've had so many questions about her weight. She was 7 pounds on the dot. So yeah, she was a 7-pound baby. After she was born, something really funny happened actually.
Where does that fall percentile wise? And do you think like the screaming crying was enough of an indicator for them not to take her?
Yeah, so basically, like, if a baby's doing well, they're going to be screaming or crying typically. Like, they're going to be making some movement. They're also going to pay attention to color. They probably had a stethoscope and like checked right away too. So obviously, like, there was enough signs that she was doing well that they didn't feel like they need to like resuscitate her or something. But yeah, I'm assuming that based on what she's saying, like with how short her pushing was and stuff, or the few amount of pushes that she needed to do, was greatly assisted by that suction cup that they were using. And then also just kind of, you know, yeah, I mean, as a baby descends through the birth canal, kind of that pressure of going through the birth canal kind of expels amniotic fluid and all of that from their lungs. And so that can give them like the ability to just like scream their little hearts out. Some babies are completely quiet and completely fine though.
Oh,
like they just chill. But when they scream, it does like help their lungs kind of open up. And
yeah.
I don't know why, stupidly, I kind of had forgotten that I'd had an epidural, and I tried to get out of bed, and this is, I'm talking maybe 10 minutes or so after I'd literally given birth, and the picture that I posted online was literally about 2 minutes after I gave birth. One of the nurses literally just like took a picture of Tommy and I, and that's why I just love that picture so
because they both look like, she looks so good in the photo. I'm like, wait.
so much, because Bambi was literally like 2 minutes old, I'd literally just pushed her out. Like the emotions in that picture, like that will forever be my favourite picture ever on the planet. But yeah, about 10 minutes or 20 minutes or something after I gave birth, Tommy was holding Bambi in a chair by the bed, and I tried to get out of bed and stand up and walk over to them both. And when I like pivoted myself out of bed and like stood up, I just literally dropped to the ground like a sack of potatoes. I just like collapsed in a heap. My legs literally, like when I remember it, my legs literally just went whoa, like they just went like jelly, and I just like collapsed to the floor. And the nurse was like, oh my god, like
how long does it normally take to wear off?
Usually they won't let you get out of bed unassisted for like 12 hours.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Like they'll like help you like get into a wheelchair sometimes to like
oh my god.
heal you, right? But like they need to take the whole epidural out.
Yeah.
And then
do you think they even took it out yet when she did this?
Probably not.
Oh my
no
god.
way. There's no way it was taken out at this point, because the anesthesiologist has to come back to remove it. And she probably had a catheter and everything.
Oh my
because
god.
like when they put an epidural in, they give you a catheter because you can't get up to like pee, but you need to like make sure. Yeah.
Really panicking, but I was laughing when it happened because I was like, no, I'm not faint, I'm fine, I'm literally okay, I'm just an idiot, like I can't feel my legs, why did I try and stand up? But I'd say the sensation probably came back to my legs properly about an hour or 2 hours later. I had 2 stitches down below, which I'm not gonna talk about a few things that I was gonna talk about in this video. I think I'm gonna have to film a separate video because this is gonna be the longest video on planet Earth. Literally no one can prepare you. Nothing anybody can say can prepare you for what you go through when you become a mum, and what you experience and the emotions you feel and the love you feel, but also the challenge that it is. Boy, oh boy, I have never been challenged like it in my entire life. Sorry if the angle's changed slightly, I have just changed the battery pack. But I was just reading through my notes there, and I have another 3 pages about all the other stuff that I wanted to talk about in this video. Things that happened in hospital just after I gave birth with Bambi, and also the first week of being a mum, and things that happened, but I know that I will literally be sat here for another 30 minutes, and I really, really want to talk about that stuff in detail, and tell you guys the stories and the things that I went through, the tears that I cried, the days that I literally thought, I literally can't, I don't know. Like, I know you guys all told me, and I feel like a bit of an idiot coming back now and sitting here and saying you were right. You guys warned me about the sleep deprivation. I think in my head I had it that I would potentially maybe per night be able to get 2 hours, 3 hours sleep, and I'd be able to survive off that. But actually what I experienced was from the minute I gave birth on the Monday night until about day 5, I actually didn't sleep a single hour. I didn't have a single...
Is that normal?
I mean, it's probably not the best plan.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be dealing with like some serious like baby blues. You need your sleep. This is why people need community and why people need support. And I also want to add a caveat that not everybody has this experience of an immediate feeling of love and bonding with their baby. Sometimes it takes a couple months, and it's completely normal for that to happen. Sometimes dads don't have that like sobbing sensation at birth. A lot of dads do, and it's beautiful, but not every parent reacts to birth in the exact same way, and it's no less valid if you don't feel immediately bonded to your baby. This is like a small caveat I would add to like what there's like just a footnote to like this experience. It's like, this is their experience and your experience can look completely different.
Single hour. For the first week, I absolutely just ran completely off adrenaline. I made myself really quite unwell. By day 5, I definitely will tell you like the full stories, but day 5 was 100% the hardest day of my entire life. Not a doubt in my mind. Like that was the hardest day of my life. I genuinely was scared for myself, my health. Like I was really, really scared, because like I said, I had 0 sleep for 5 nights. I've only felt like the last couple of days I've sort of started to get a bit of a grip of myself and start to feel I definitely wouldn't say normal. I am far from feeling normal, but I'm definitely starting to remember to take care of myself. I'm remembering to give myself breakfast and to make myself dinner, and remembering to have a shower, brush my teeth. I'll be completely honest, I think there was like stints of like maybe 3 days where I didn't brush my teeth or even shower, or, you know, change my flipping period pad, because things they don't tell you as well, you will be on the heaviest, it's not a period, but you will just bleed insane amounts for the next, like for the period after you have a vaginal delivery. But even things like remembering to change my pad, giving myself a minute to clean myself, look after myself, like you literally just don't prioritize yourself anymore. I can't explain it. It's like your own needs just don't matter. And the last few days I have definitely started to realize that I have to take care of myself. Like, I am not a good mother. I'm not going to be a good mother to Bambi if I don't also take care of myself. Boy, oh boy, has this been a crazy experience so far, and one that I am so beyond excited to keep learning about and keep experiencing. Like, no matter how hard the days are, and no matter how sleep deprived I am, or, you know, whatever, like, it's like you would do it a million times over. Like, I would live day 5, the hardest day of my life, I would live that every single day for the rest of Bambi's life, just to make sure she's got everything that she needs.
So what did you think?
She's so sweet. I think she's too hard on herself. Every mom is too hard on herself, but like, first of all, her birth is very, I don't want to say it's out of touch. It's very normal birth experience. I think start to finish. It seems like she had a team of people and her partner who were very supportive of her needs and kind of like what she needed for her birth, and really tried to like help her achieve what she wanted, which I think is phenomenal. I think that, you know, how people feel about her experience doesn't necessarily matter. It's more of what she feels about her experience. And I think it really highlights really strongly like how much you need to prepare for your postpartum mental health and put boundaries in place for yourself, knowing that you are going to take care of yourself within the first 12 hours of your birth. If you have an epidural and you can finally get up, get a shower, get yourself some food, brush your teeth, brush your hair, put on some makeup or cleanse your face, whatever you need to do, and then go snuggle your baby. It takes 20 minutes to do it, 30 minutes maybe, you know, to do that, but take care of yourself. You have to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Because on the other side of that is just like you're able to be a better person for yourself and for your baby. And like sometimes like, I think after we have babies, we just stop advocating for ourselves. Like, we advocate for ourselves really, really well through our pregnancy and birth, but then like the postpartum happens and then kind of all goes out the window. But postpartum mental health, the foundations of that start really, really early. It can start really, really early. So
what do you think is the max someone can sleep if like you have like a postpartum doula and stuff?
So in the first like couple weeks postpartum, I think it's pretty normal for people to get sleep in like 3-hour stints, right? Because your newborn baby needs to feed every 3 hours. If you're breastfeeding exclusively. Now, if you are able to, you know, use a Haka pump and collect a couple ounces of milk, then you could get 6 hours of sleep because your partner or your doula or your mom or your friend could feed the baby, right, for that one feeding. And I think that so it just kind of depends on, you know, your particular circumstance. I don't think I got 8 hours of sleep straight through until Esme was 6 months old.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But I just like, she was in a bassinet next to me. And so she would wake up to eat and I would just like pull her into bed with me, feed her, and then put her back. And I never got up. I just never got up out of bed. Like it just like stayed in bed all night. And I just had like a little station with like a diaper and wipes right next to my bed so that I could just like wipe, give her a little diaper change if I needed to. But she typically, like, I wouldn't change her diaper in the middle of the night at first, unless it was poopy. Like if she had just peed and it was just like a little bit of pee, like I wouldn't change it until like in the middle of the night, just whatever. Or if I did, I would just like quickly do a nappy change and I like wouldn't worry about like wiping everything perfectly. I was like, I'll deal with it in the morning, and it worked out. Like it was fine. So I think like finding whatever system works well for you. I think there's a lot of pressure to do everything perfect or one particular way, or the way that your mom did it, or the way that your friend did it. And that's just not how life works. Like you have to find your own kind of like rhythm, but having kind of space for, you know, ease into movement, get some sunshine, make sure you're taking your vitamins still, try and rest if it helps. Like sometimes like you can become more nocturnal in the postpartum and just sleep during the day while your partner's there or your mom's there to hold the baby, if that feels better. And then you're a little bit more equipped to stay up for like longer stints in the middle of the night. But
yeah,
I mean, it's just exhausting. I mean, this is why some people have like sleep nannies or like sleep doulas to like help them. So
I feel like I definitely will. Cause like, yeah, if I don't sleep, then I could like be at risk for a seizure and stuff. So I feel like it was like never like, even I remember when I was doing this internship, like people were encouraging me to go into investment banking. And I was like, no, I literally cannot not sleep. That is a horrible idea. So yeah,
oh my
that's
gosh.
crazy.
Yeah, no, sleep is super, super important. Like our bodies need sleep. There is like a certain part of us, I think, in postpartum that's like better equipped. Like I was a very heavy sleeper before, and then I would just like wake up at the like slightest grunt. I also like I knew that I would be kind of anxious postpartum too. Like I kind of prepared for that because it took us so much to get Esme. I was like so concerned about something happening to her, and I knew that was like it's an anxiety piece for me. So I like bought a baby snooza like movement monitor, and I would clip it on her diaper at night, and it basically like if it stops moving, it beeps. Right, so it counts respirations. It went off twice. It went off twice where it was like, okay, like she may have been having like just like newborns can stop breathing, similar to like sleep apnea, because their body's not quite regulated it. One time she was actually not breathing, but it wasn't like concerning because it was like 30 seconds, and I just like basically picked her up, and then she just kind of like gulped air. Oh my God. And then the other time it was like the monitor wasn't sitting perfectly on her stomach. But it gave me a lot of reassurance to be able to let myself sleep. And I'm glad that I had that tool. Other people love the like Owlet Smart Sock. The reason I decided not to use that one in particular is because like our internet, you basically have to have good internet connection. And our internet connection would like reset in the middle of the night. And I didn't want to just be woken up constantly. So I saw that in the reviews, and I was like, I'll just pick the one that's more analog. Because it doesn't have any internet connection, right? It just catches the breathing and it clips directly on their diaper under their PJs. So yeah, I was thankful to have tools like that. And all in all, I thought like the postpartum experience was like fairly good still. But everyone's is so different, and you can't really compare yours to somebody else. Like everybody has their own, you know, kind of experience with the birth and the postpartum. And I think that collectively we can do a lot better as a community to like take care of each other. And I think there's just like, but that was a beautiful story. I'm glad. I think it's so cool to see moms normalizing birth and postpartum.
Because like, I mean, I've been following her since 2020, because that during the pandemic in April 2020, I went through a Love Island phase, and I watched every season. I had actually watched season 1 and 2 when I was abroad in London in 2018, but then like the up to season 6, I think, in April 2020. And like they were my favorite couple to come out of Love Island, because they're just so like soft and warm and bubbly. And she's pretty like demanding, I would say. Like she wears the pants in the relationship, but I like love that. And I love that he's so receptive to it. And he's always so sweet to her, even though he's a fighter. But literally, like, you wouldn't be able to tell, because he just has like the kindest personality. And so I was shocked when they announced that they were pregnant, because they were season 4's winners, which I think was like 2020, maybe like 2019 or something. And so they haven't even been like, they're not married. They haven't been dating for that long. Like, I think 3, like it must be like, I guess now like 4 years. But when they announced she was pregnant, they'd only been dating for 3 years. And she talked about how it was such a shock to them because she had either PCOS or endometriosis. I forget which, but she had always anticipated having fertility issues. But she talks about how even so, or because of that, she never went on birth control, and she wasn't on birth control for like 3 years. And so it wasn't a shock to them that she got pregnant, but it kind of was because she was anticipating having fertility issues. And so when she talks about like how she found out that she was pregnant, she talks about how there were like 2 weeks where she was literally just like in shock and like didn't even know how to feel about it.
Yeah.
And so it was like just so crazy, but yeah, I love her.
It probably feels very real to a lot of parents. Cause like I was having a conversation earlier today about like how it's so wild that pregnancy can happen by accident, and yet you have a whole other human that you're like taking care of, and like
I know.
Yeah, like people are wildly unprepared sometimes, and it's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I saw there's another couple on TikTok that's pretty famous, and they were talking about their pregnancy and how she was just like in denial, even though there's like a sonogram and all these different things. It's just like she wasn't mentally prepared for that, and so it was just like this massive kind of feelings of shock.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Well, thanks so much for doing this with me.
This is fun.
Cool. It's cool to get your insights, and hoping to feature more of you on the channel.
I feel like this could become a series of us like reacting to celebrity pregnancy. Pregnancy birth stories. Oh
we should do Shay Mitchell's video or something.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe.